A lot gets said about how good gardening is for your mental health and how therapeutic it is and all of those great benefits, but I think it's easy for people to forget that when you're first starting out, it can be really overwhelming and honestly really stressful. I was talking to a brand new gardener the other day, and they were just like, I don't even know where to start. There's so much to learn and so many different things to consider. It's really overwhelming. And I remember feeling that way. There was a moment in my first gardening season where I was texting a gardener that I know that has a lot of experience. I remember sending her a text asking her if I had two zucchini plants or one in this one space because I just didn't know what a zucchini sprout looked like. And I never heard back from her. And I'm sure she just got busy with other things, but of course, I was like, why didn't I pay more attention in biology class? Now, after I've had a few years of gardening experience, I think the fact that there is so much to learn is what helps keep me interested in gardening. But I know that a lot of the stress when I was first starting out came from not being able to get the big picture. There's a lot of guides about individual plants or specific scenarios to work through, but I was really missing this larger context that helped make everything else make more sense. So if you are a new gardener or maybe have like 1 or 2 years of experience under your belt but are still kind of struggling to build that bigger picture of what makes the garden work and what doesn't, I think that these three concepts that I'm going to share with you today are going to help you figure out what to focus on and what you can ignore. I actually have a raised bed that I need to build today, and as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I realized that the raised bed is the perfect microcosm of what I mean on a larger scale. So first is to get to know the box that you are working within, and by that I mean the entire three-dimensional space of your garden. So that is the air, the soil, not just focusing on what's at eye level and what's right where the ground and the air meet, but what's a few feet below that, what is happening above that. Something I really underestimated as a new gardener is how unique my space would be compared to people within my neighborhood or region, much less someone giving advice on YouTube. A lot of this comes down to being really observant. So keeping track of how the sun moves through your space through the year. There's some spots in my yard that get no sun during the winter, but they do get about 6 hours during the summer. As trees leaf out, what becomes full shade that was maybe full sun in the spring? What direction does the wind come from and how strong is it? What spots are growing moss or mushrooms versus spots that are not growing anything at all or are full of weeds? These are all clues that will help you work with your environment instead of fighting against it, and will give you clues as to what plants will thrive where. The first thing a lot of people say to first-time gardeners is start small. I can see where they're coming from, but I think that that's actually bad advice. I think you should go ambitious and do whatever you want to do. The only thing I'll say is don't do anything permanent in your first year so that you can get a year of observation under your belt and just see how all of these factors affect your plants. The second thing is to think in systems, and soil is a great example of that. A teaspoon of soil can contain a billion microorganisms and thousands of species. And in healthy soil, these species work in conjunction with your plant roots to produce healthy plants that are pest resistant, disease resistant. They can take up all the water and nutrients that they need. It's really amazing. So when we do things like add a bunch of possibly unnecessary fertilizer or too much of a good thing like blood and bone meal that are really high in certain nutrients, that can actually cause imbalances, change the pH of your soil, cause different populations of those microorganisms to not thrive. And so even if there are plenty of nutrients and minerals in your soil, your plants might not be able to access them because all that's been thrown out of whack and the whole system is off. Another great example is pests. So if you use a insecticide, you might solve your problem in the short term, but long term you are creating a greater imbalance potentially because you don't have any predator populations to help you out. People don't like to hear it, but wasps are a great example. They hunt and feed on so many problematic bugs in your garden, but people are so scared of them and intent on getting rid of them that it can contribute to some of these greater imbalances. And I understand if you're like allergic or you have kids running around or something like that. I'm not saying that you need to leave the nests in your living space necessarily, but just keep in mind that when you get rid of a problem, sometimes you are inviting a bigger problem. And as new gardeners, I think we are so emotionally invested in our plants that sometimes it can lead us to be reactive instead of just taking a minute, observing, and thinking more holistically about the entire system. And third, just plant a lot of plants. I think a lot of first-time gardeners want to start easy, want to start small, and so they'll maybe just do like some peppers, some tomatoes for a salsa garden or something like that. And that's fine, but maybe consider adding some carrots or some herbs or some flowers, really filling out your planting space as much as you can. Let's be honest, if you're gonna kill 25% of your plants in your first year, it is much better to have like 12 plants than just 4. Don't get too caught up in the rules of companion planting. It's very much more of an art than a science, in my opinion. But by planting a lot, you are benefiting those plants, you are benefiting the soil, and ultimately you are going to get to harvest more, which is going to give you a better experience out of gardening. Even if something that you're really looking forward to doesn't work out, you can have a couple of wins under your belt in that first year if you just try a lot of things. I am so glad that I was ambitious in my first year and tried planting some really challenging things, because even though it was a lot of work and not everything did work out, I will never forget, for example, my first pumpkin. It was kind of challenging to grow. I didn't have everything right, but I was just so proud of it, and that really got me hooked on gardening. Beyond those 3 concepts, there certainly is still a lot to learn from gardening, but that really, I think, just comes with time and experience, and there really is no better teacher than those 2 things. I do wish that I'd been a little bit more careful as a new gardener about who I listened to. I didn't realize at the time that very little gardening advice is actually proven by science. Not that all of it needs to be proven by science, but it's really helpful to know what is kind of folklore or in the category of maybe ritual compared to hard and fast science and things that you can replicate for yourself. So on that note, here are 7 gardening myths that I fell for as a new gardener.